So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how AmeriCorps members focus on improving student well-being and what you see as the impact on this increased focus of on the whole child. Alexis.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I could speak for both reading partners, and I'm sure many folks in this space is, relationships, and particularly ones facilitated by our AmeriCorps members, are the cornerstone of our approach. And if we're not centering the whole student and their full selves and all the power within partnership and community and focusing on that with those relationships, I think it's of a disservice to our students. I look at AmeriCorps members, both, folks that are actively servicing alums who are now in staff positions with our organizations, as community connectors. They're folks that are focused on, I think there's a lot of pressure associated with, I think, especially in the academic space, you're focused on regaining months of lost learning, academic gains, benchmarks, all the different things that, are breathing down our necks to do best in best service of our students. And I think what can often get lost in the urgency and pressure of that is taking the time to slow down and prioritize relationship, prioritize connection, prioritize the power of all those within doing that with community, not for them, not to them. And I think that's the AmeriCorps members play a key role in that, because they're the folks that are coming in and they're saying, I hear all the noise from the school, from the organization, from home, all the pressures that's coming from every different direction, and saying, how can I prioritize the connection? How can I prioritize the relationship, both that AmeriCorps members have directly with the student? Yes, that's a part of it, but I look at our core members as facilitators for that with other folks. They're prioritizing, initiating those relationships from student to tutor, from student to core member, from strengthening student to other school support staff. I think our core members play a critical role, I guess, is what I would say, in facilitating all those different relationships from all the different angles.
That's really helpful. So what I hear you saying, it's about more than reading and math. We heard the secretary talk about 1 in 3 teenage girls has considered suicide. I think I heard a statistic recently that said 1 in 6 high school students have an active suicide plan right now. We know the Surgeon General has talked about this loneliness epidemic that we have right now. So what is your take on how these supports are helping address those crises that we're facing?
I think it's the social emotional element we're beginning to see, at Reading Partners. It's a priority integrated into all of our programming, and as with other orgs. And I think the focusing on the social emotional element it's directly tackling that. It is taking the time to slow down and say, I'm focused on you as a whole being, not just your academic success, because we believe that your academic success, it's directly tied to your well-being. And it's, we could have data and academic gains off the charts that are showing one thing, but if it's not telling the whole story of the whole student and their whole being, we miss the mark on that. So I think, through AmeriCorps, through tutors, through mentorship, you have this group of folks that are in service of our students, but really focused on the whole student and the social emotional piece of it. So it is someone I'm not focused on necessarily, say, how your grades are shaking out or this, that, or the third. How are you? How am I, both through indirectly, just by being a person who's dedicated to showing up and sharing space with you every week. But on top of that as well, how can we integrate very specific and intentional, whether that's through lessons, whether that's through programming, you name it, different forms of outreach to really address those really harsh statistics that our students are facing, but in a way that's centered and really leaning into the power of community, because I do believe in the beauty of that and the healing power that's within that. And then I think when you have students that are held up in community, it makes grappling with suicide rates and ideation and things like that easier. It makes students that are feeling isolated due to the pandemic or things that were unveiled that during the pandemic, but that we were facing prior to. I think that one-on-one support really, both directly and indirectly, addresses all those, both in, we could pull the data in really intentional ways of here's how we tackled this, out, and the third. But I think the higher level is when I'm sitting, if I think about my service, or even as an alum who still interacts with students to this day, I'm sitting down and the child is my focus in this moment. And what the child needs from me is what the priority is that day. Hopefully we're going to get to, in my context, say with reading partners, I'm hoping we're getting to a lesson. I'm hoping that we're making some progress with literacy, yes, but equal of the priority for me is that, how are you today? What do you need from me today? And what can I consistently show up? And whether that's through direct support or just holding space for our students as well.